Hello everybody. You guys miss Simon? I know I do. But yeah, anyways, I'd like to thank everybody joining me here for Oval Window Racing Coffee Time. Where today we are just going to discuss these contraptions I got in front of me. First, let's get caffeinated. Good stuff. Well, what I got here are carburetors, or as my wife likes to call, binoculars. They kind of look like binoculars, don't they? You can't see nothing through them unless you open up these. These are Weber IDAs, and I've got some Weber IDFs. And, well, I'll show you guys kind of the difference here. We got one looks massively bigger than the other. Originally, the IDAs, I believe, were made in Italy, and found them on a lot of different cars back in the, I don't know, 60s and 70s, 80s and 90s. One of the biggest, probably well-known cars is the like the Cobra 428 Shelby, and except for instead of running two of these bad boys, they had four. They were quad. Now, these are 48 millimeter, and it's pretty much decided by the size of the butterfly. All right, well, there's some companies out there that like to modify these IDAs, and that by putting the bigger accelerator plates or butterflies. I think they make them up to 52 millimeters with these castings, but then some people have aftermarket castings, and I think they have them well over 60 millimeter. That's typically most of your race cars run those. What I got here is, like I said, these are IDFs. These are a little smaller. These are generally what most people run in their Volkswagen Bugs, just generally because they fit down in the car better, and you can run air cleaners and still shut your deck lid. One of these I think is a 40 millimeter, and the other's a 44. I have them lying around just mainly because these are spare parts. You can see I robbed a few parts off of this one here. You can see I robbed a few parts off of this one here, like the spring on here. Actually, I'm running the spring on the throttle body that I'm running on Simon there for the EFI, but and there's been a few other things I've swiped off of them. But I'll show you something here. This carburetor's missing some parts. That's typically what happens when you leave them out in the open and water gets in there and mixes with the gas, and they have a tendency to break. Yeah, it's pretty corroded in there. I can't even barely turn some of the screws on it. And this one here, I don't know, I was told it just didn't have any idle mixture circuits in it. Probably could have been fixed or repaired, but it was just easier to buy a different carb, and I just wound up getting it for spare parts. But yeah, back onto the IDAs. You're probably not going to believe this, but I find the IDAs much easier to work on when they're in the back of a Beetle. And the only downfall is they do sit up higher. They have a much taller intake manifold. You can get shorter intake manifolds. I think Gene Berg makes some, but you basically really can't run air cleaners with them. They do make little unifilters. Actually, they don't make them. They actually find them at like motorcycle shops. Those little foam things that'll slide over that help. But if you guys have been following me, you pretty much know that I'm into going 100 miles an hour, not 100,000 miles. Generally, I typically would, when I was running these, would go through my engine about every 2 years just to make sure everything's kosher on the inside, and you know, that counts for a re-ring job and possibly new cylinders. But I've never really had a big issue. Mainly because it's a street-driven car and it only really sees pavement, and well, in the past I hadn't really seen a whole lot of miles. I've actually put way more miles on Simon in the last 3 years than I've had in the last 15 years that he's been up and running. I think I've had Simon about 22 years. Yeah, but typically one of these IDAs, I'm told, is roughly 600 CFM. So you put two of these bad boys on a little 136 cc, not cc, 136 cubic inch engine, and you have 1200 CFM. Yeah, so what are you running on your small block Chevy again? Man up. But the surprising thing, when you do run these on a Volkswagen, they are really mild-mannered on the street. When I was running these, I could set the idle, with the advance roughly 7 to 10 degrees, and it would sit there and idle 850 RPMs at every stoplight. But man, I tell you what, man, when you get rip roaring down the quarter mile with the throttle wide open, man, these suckers do roar. So yeah, kind of got the best of both worlds. But what we're going to be doing with these things today is to show you a couple little tricks I did, and I'm also going to kind of open them up because I don't remember how they were left. I do remember I pulled them off the engine and kind of stuck them in the box, and I'm pretty good at cleaning them out, make sure there's no fuel in there. But I just want to double check and make sure everything's clean, because these will be going on Hubert when we get Hubert up and running. So they will be on Emily's car, and we're going to put smaller Venturis in. I don't remember what Venturis I have in here, but they come, looks like factory, with the 40 millimeter Venturi. And I probably got a 42 or 44 millimeter Venturi in here. Generally on a race application, you try to match the size of your intake valve, but on a street engine, you kind of want to be 2 to 4 millimeters smaller. But I was doing street strip, so I matched the intake, and I believe I was running a 42 millimeter intake. So it's a good thing there's a good possibility that they're a 42 millimeter. But I think I skipped over a whole thing. I think I was talking about how easy these were to work on. As you can see right here with some light, the idle mixture screw is kind of in a 45, and like with the IDFs, they're a 90. Okay, and the reason I'm pointing that out is when these things are in your engine, they generally sit this way, with the idle mixture screws on the outside and your throttle screws. We'll point the this will be the back side. Point the throttle screw out here, and then I'll make a note to show you. I still got throttle screws again, 45, 90. And the reason I'm pointing that out is when these are sitting in your car like this on top of your intake manifold, you can actually sneak down in between the body of the car and get on this. Get some light here. So generally, you can sneak in between the body of the car and get on the screw and set your idle speed, or no, your idle mixture, and that's a plus, because with the IDF, again, they are 90. You can't do that. You have to go in this way, and if you don't have a really wide engine, you might be able to get a short little stubby screwdriver in there, or kind of get in there and move them with your fingers, but it is a pain. And again, spark plugs. If any of you guys worked on a bug with dual IDFs, it's virtually impossible to change spark plugs, at least the back two, without it's just removing the carb. It's actually easier to remove the carb to get at the spark plugs. But with the IDAs, and if you got these big tall manifolds, you can get down in there, especially when you got little skinny scrawny arms like me. But yeah, that's been my experience with the IDAs versus the IDFs. When I was running the IDFs, back before I had the IDAs, I literally had a window in the wheel well. You remove the wheel, then you remove the panel, and I think there's somebody out there that actually makes a kit. If you wanted to use their kit, I just used some extra sheet metal and welded some screws and screwed the doors on with a little bit of foam on there. But still, you want to change spark plugs, you got to jack the car up, take the wheels off, and then get those doors off, and then still reach up in there, and you really can't see what you're doing. But I found it really easy to move these. But like I said, The downfall is you really can't run an air cleaner because the IDAs do have a air cleaner kit, and a lot of the buggy guys run IDAs, and literally the air cleaner is way bigger. Like I said, you can see the size difference. Much smaller air cleaner, much larger air cleaner. But yeah, let's get to opening these bad boys up. Okay, only gonna really need one for right now, so we'll set that one aside. And these things are relatively easy to work on. Pretty much a screwdriver takes the whole top of the carburetor off. Other than the fact I got my linkage on here, so we got to remove the linkage nuts here. Probably could have put screws in there, but I think these are a special kind of nut. Yeah, it's been so long since I've been in these. I'm kind of getting pumped. Yeah, look at that. That's a special type of screw. Don't lose it. But yeah, I'm getting pumped to work on these again. It's been so long since I've played with them. One more here, kind of hidden. Some more light on the situation here. All right. In linkage, I've always kind of swore by the CB's hex bar linkage, and that's what these are. There are some people that run that swear by Gene Berg's linkage. I've never run it. I've had some friends that run it. Downfall on that is you got to kind of modify your fan shroud because it does bolt your fan shroud. These are velocity stacks. IDFs, when you bought them in a kit, I think the only ones that really came with the velocity stacks were the 44 millimeters. You could probably get them for the 40 millimeters. I don't know why that was a thing, but that's how I've always bought them. I guess generally when you throw an air cleaner on them, I don't know how much of a benefit you get running the velocity stacks, but they do look cool. So another thing Gene Berg has been doing, they've been machining the insides of these Venturis, and they say they can take like a 40 millimeter Venturi and kind of make it flow like a larger Venturi, but yet still keep the benefits of running the smaller Venturi. And as I'm taking these apart, I'm remembering another thing that's kind of nice. I'll show you here in a minute. We've got these little screens on top of here. See the little screen? That is where the jets are. Not just the main jets in the stacks, but your idle jets. So basically, especially for racing, you pull this little screen off, and look, your jets are right in there. Easy to make jet changes and on the fly, where your IDFs here, I don't have any main stack jets in this. They are on top for your main and air correction jets, but your idle mixture jets, they're right here. Okay, generally like in a racing situation, you shouldn't have to change your idle jets, but on a street application, a lot of times the problem with these carbs is the idle jets will get blocked. And then you have an idle issue, a little pop here and there, and you got to take these idle jets out and clean them out. And you know, if you're running, I guess a couple of good fuel filters, and you know, you're running the carbs or the car a lot, you shouldn't generally have a problem, you know, with plugged idle jets. But if you do, like here in Michigan, we don't run our cars all that much. They'll sit in the winter time, and well, yeah, poor maintenance on changing your fuel filters or your gas tank, keeping it clean. You get a headache and have to clean these things, and they're, like I said, same with where the idle mixture screws are. They're really a pain in the butt to get at, especially with the fuel line in the way. You know, a plus with the IDAs. But to tell you the truth, I don't really remember having too much of an issue with the idle jets on the IDAs versus the IDFs. I don't know if this is something with the circuit, it's just better or flows better or cleaner, but I never had that much of an issue. All right, back to the exciting part. A couple more screws here, and we can take a look inside this thing. I can show you a couple things I did. Got one more hiding back here, I think. Oh, two more. It's a very simple car, at least for my mind anyways. I've looked and I've never really played with Holley carburetors or Quadrajets or anything. When I was first getting into the turbo game, I almost set it up, my car, with a draw-through 4-barrel 650. I think it was a Holley I had bought it used. And yeah, just taking that thing apart and looking at it, you know. But this should come right off. Carb top, the needle and seat here, and I'll point that out in a minute. And then nice brass float. And just for a little advice, Clint always likes to give you some advice throughout his videos here. Even when you first get these, you know, throw them in some water, or, you know, run them for a little bit with gasoline, take them out and shake them. If they're leaking, you know, they'll fill up with a little bit of fluid and you'll hear it sloshing around in there. And just because it's a new carburetor doesn't mean it's not going to leak. Ask me how I know. Now, I'm going to remember how these, I think these just pull out. Careful with the gasket. These are the accelerator. Is there something I got to loosen? They're just in there. They just haven't been out in a while. They're the accelerator pumps. They're just in there. I think there was a little rubber O-ring on there, but yeah, it feels like it's clean. This one out. Generally, when I run these things, everything's moist, so it'll pop right out. Since they've been sitting for over 10 years, they're going to be a bugger. Yep, that's open. These things, yep, they just pull out. I forgot what these things are called. If you know what these things are called, please remind me down in the comments. Let's take these jets out first. All right. This is an idle jet. Okay, I'll show you right here. And the IDAs, it's kind of almost like the main jet. There is a fuel jet, which is a small guy here, and then the holder, which actually works as like an air correction jet, because there is a hole in this thing too, which is different than the IDFs. The IDFs, they just have a jet. And there's the air corrections probably kind of on the top, but I don't even think that's changeable. This is your main stack. Okay, you got your main jet, then this comes off and you have your air correction jet, and then you've got your emulsion tube. And everything has got its own little job. Yeah, it looks like I've got 42mm Venturis in here. So I must have been running a 42mm valve. Now the idea is to get a better top end, or more power on your top end of the bigger Venturis. Street driving, you're going to benefit with the lower end because you're not doing a lot of full throttle pulls on the street where you shouldn't be. So the smaller one's going to work. I may, you know, she's going to have a 40mm intake, so I may have to see if maybe I can find some 36s. I don't know if they make a 36. They probably do. But the idea today was to put the 40s in. At first I wanted to check the float bowls out. I almost sold these because these still actually bring in good money. Years ago I'd mentioned, you know, since I was going fuel injection to help fund the project, to sell the IDAs, but a friend of mine talked me out of it. So don't do that, you'll really regret it. And yeah, he's right. I probably would have. But yeah, the float comes out real easy. It's all brass. And, well, there shouldn't be anything in it. It's been dry for years. You can look down in the float bowls, and other than a little bit of corrosion from just sitting, everything looks good. So, what we're going to talk about is some improvements I made on these. I've already told you about changing out the Venturis, but one of the other things to do to help get more fuel is to increase the size of your needle and seat. And these come factory with, I believe, a 2.0. Got the spectacles. Now let's see if I can see. Holy cow. Well, I see 300, so I'm thinking that's 3.0. And we will verify that. Or not verify that, but I'll tell you what the factory ones were. See if I can read those right off the bat. They are 200. So what that does is help the float bowls fill up faster. Now that I got these on, let's see if I can give you some jet sizes. I continued running the emulsion tubes. Continue running the emulsion tubes, which were F11s. Looks like I left off with 180 main jet and a 150 air correction jet. That's where I had those left off. And my idle jet looks like a 65 idle jet, and the air corrector was a 120. But one of the things I can't see, guys. One of the things I had issues with, and it seems like every time I run dual carbs, there's always kind of a haunting, like I was street driving. You know, I'd get up to a certain point, like a cruising speed, and the car would kind of once in a while just kind of hesitate a little bit. And I kind of experienced that a little bit with the IDFs, but a little bit more with the IDAs. And what's going on there is I'm kind of like right in the middle where the idle jet and the main jet take over. Okay, when you're idling around at lower RPMs, you're basically running on your idle jet, and then when you start going up to the higher RPMs, it switches over to the main jet. And I think that's where my hesitation was coming in. And I was kind of working on soldering up and trying to get a smaller air correction, just for fun. I never really got around to testing it out. I think I could buy smaller air correction for the idle, but I just never did. Now, since we're still on the topic of the idle jets, I told you how to get more fuel into the carb. There was another trick which I was hoping that would, oh my God, I've had these things, been a while. They're in here good. I don't know if you can see in here. Alright, if you look down in there, I was trying to light down in there, you can see that there's 3 holes. Alright, these come from the factory with 2 holes. And those are a progressive hole. See where that throttle plate kind of passes by? Those 3 holes. They're going to suck more fuel through. And the fuel also comes out here. So when the car's sitting at an idle, it's only drawing fuel through this hole, because that's where the vacuum's coming through. But when you start to go drive and you open up, you start drawing some of the fuel through these little holes up here. And someone discovered that putting that 3rd progression hole in there really helps with the drivability of the car. The last tip, last but not least, is the float bowl here. When you get these carburetors, there is a wall right here where my finger is, so we use a screwdriver so you can see. Okay, and all your fuel goes into this chamber here, and if you remember, it goes through the needle and seat. And these are really sensitive, these needles and seat. They don't recommend pumping more than 3.5 pounds of fuel pressure. So when you start getting in the higher RPM range, like I used to run this car, when I ran these carburetors, you know, my shift point was like 8,500 RPMs, and the car would go up to 9,000 RPMs. You know, these things start drawing a lot of fuel at those RPMs, and you know, last thing you want to do is starve the engine. So if you don't have enough fuel in your fuel bowl, it's a good possibility you're going to draw it all out and then, you know, start starving the engine at the top end. But what one of my buddies did for me is he put these carbs on a mill, and he milled out this wall. For some reason, these, you know, carbs come with this wall here, and there's nothing there. It's just a hollow space. So by machining this area out, you can actually gain, I think I measured it, was like 60 more cc's of fuel on top of what the carb is already holding. So you know, for basically free, you know, removing this wall, you gain more fuel or more space to hold fuel. So with the combination of the larger needle and seat to get more fuel in, and then be able to hold more fuel, you eliminate the chance of running out of fuel at, you know, top end there, you know, running through the traps at a quarter mile. Now you could probably, you know, carefully with a Dremel tool and a carbide bit, go and remove this wall, and it can be done. But if you just happen to have, you know, a friend that's in the machine and tool die, it would probably be better to, you know, lock it down on a mill and slowly do it with a mill. I won't bore you with me putting these back together, but yeah, if you have any questions, or like I said, if you remember what they call these things, please leave a comment down below. Hopefully in the near future, actually show you these guys things running on not Simon, but Hubert. Yeah, some more work to do in Hubert, but yeah, we're making progress. So yeah, just stay tuned and follow along and enjoy the ride. Until next time, keep shifting those gears. We'll see ya.